It's a police shooting with so many questions.
I would want to know what was going through their mind when they took those shots.
6 bystanders hurt as Denver officers fire at a man in a crowded lower downtown.
Anytime you're in a big crowd, you definitely, when you see a gun, you need to make a split-second decision.
Tonight, body camera video shedding new light on the shooting and raising new questions.
You can see there's bystanders behind him in the bar.
Tonight, we're taking you through this video and giving you multiple perspectives as a grand jury now launches its investigation.
You can see with your own eyes and form your own opinion.
And that is where we start tonight. Denver police just releasing video from last month, a police shooting that left 6 bystanders injured in lower downtown.
The DA today announced a grand jury will now investigate whether the 3 officers who fired at Jordan Waddy just as bars were closing on July 17th will face criminal charges.
In the days after the shooting, police said Waddy flashed a gun at the officers, and DPD released an image showing him appearing to take a weapon out of his jacket. Well, video released today shows Waddy taking out that weapon, tossing it, and putting his hands up before police fired. A separate angle shows an officer firing at Waddy despite a crowd of people behind him. Video from a nearby Halo cam shows that crowd scrambling for safety as police fired.
Well, tonight we're going to take this story 360, offering you multiple perspectives so you can make your own decision.
You will hear from someone with a background in police training and the chair of the Citizens Oversight Board, comparing the video to what we heard from police in the days after the shooting. You'll also hear from the attorney for Jordan Waddy, the man who was shot by police that morning.
Denver 7's Rob Harris begins our team coverage, taking us through the footage and hearing from a police expert about those key moments and how police are trained to react.
Yeah, so the sequence of events was very fast that night. It was less than a minute from the start of the initial fist fight outside the beer hall to when police start shooting. The body camera footage released today shows that Jordan Waddy did have a gun, as police said last month. But as we've said, it also shows that he threw the gun to the ground and put his hands in the air just before officers start shooting. It was just about a 1/6 of a second between the time Waddy threw his gun to the ground and the first shot from police was fired. And in the seconds that followed, several more shots from police hit Waddy, and 6 bystanders were also hurt.
I think the tough thing when someone reaches for a gun and you spot a gun is just how short a time period that can occur in.
We went through moment by moment of the video with Stacy Hervey, a former patrol officer and now a professor of criminal justice at Metropolitan State University of Denver. We first watched this body camera footage with her, showing the moments that Waddy throws his gun and officers open fire.
The perpetrator has to act, the officer focuses in on the gun, and the brain tells the officer to react. I think what people don't realize is it then takes the brain a second or two to tell the officer to stop that action. And I think that's where it can get really tricky when these things are, he threw the gun, because we can watch this video 3 or 4 times versus the officer seeing, in real time. Real time is much different.
Why is it that they would shoot so many times, especially if he had fallen to the ground after the first shot?
The protocol is to stop the threat, or what you perceive to be the threat. What some people don't realize is your brain can't stop on a dime.
Next, we asked Hervey to break down this officer's body cam, coming from a different angle, with shots being fired towards Waddy and the bystanders behind him from the side.
I think one thing that can happen to officers when they're in a situation like that and they do think there is a gun is you get a little bit of tunnel vision, which can occur. So you tend to focus on the suspect who has the gun versus everything around you. Anytime you're in a big crowd, you definitely, when you see a gun, you need to make a split-second decision on whether it's safe to take that shot or not.
Hervey says between growing violence in downtown Denver and high-profile mass shootings across the country, officers feel more pressure to react quickly when they perceive potential gun violence among crowds of people. Still, Hervey says there are important questions that need answered from police.
What the officers' perceptions were, I would want to know what was going through their mind. Also, if it was bullets or ricochets that hit the bystanders, I think that's going to be a really important question too.
Now, Hervey says it's up to the city of Denver to address the growing violence downtown so that officers and civilians don't find themselves in harm's way. One thing she advocates for is staggered closing of bars downtown to avoid large groups of people on the streets late at night. Shannon.
All right, Rob Harris tonight. Thank you, Rob. And this new video is raising so many questions. about what we heard from police immediately in the days after the shooting.
Why did Denver police only release a still image of Jordan Waddy pulling out his weapon and not a still of him tossing it away? Or why did police say officers fired at a brick backdrop, even though the video shows Waddy was in front of a bar window and a crowd of people?
Well, Denver 7's Jessica Porter joins us now with comparing what we saw in the video to what DPD said last month.
Well, Shannon, and what has become clear to our newsroom after looking at the video released today is last month Denver police cherry-picked information and images when presenting the case for firing near a crowd.
Multiple times, Denver police defended their actions, opening fire in lower downtown where 6 innocent bystanders were injured, sharing a single photo of Jordan Waddy holding a gun.
The subject eventually pulled out a handgun and held it in a manner that the muzzle of the gun was pointed in the direction of the officers who were on Larimer Street. He was pointing that firearm at the officers.
But video released today shows Jordan Waddy tossing the weapon and putting his hands up before being shot.
The muzzle of the handgun was pointed in the direction of the 2 officers on Larimer Street.
Body camera video appears to show Waddy grabbing the gun by the muzzle, not the handle, as he threw the weapon. Something that was immediately apparent to Julia Richmond, the chair of the Denver Citizen Oversight Board, an organization tasked with looking at police accountability.
Looking at the video, not only is it clear that he was trying to throw the gun, but the gun is upside down at some point.
DPD also defended their choice to shoot near a crowd.
The officers were pretty clear that they had a clear shot and that the backdrop was the brick pillar or the interior of the beer hall, which had been cleared out because the bar closed, the bar push had already occurred.
But video inside the bar shows the beer hall had not been completely cleared out. And there was a crowd of people standing in front of the bar, which erupts into chaos when shots rang out.
Officers are trained to use their weapons when there's a hard backstop. And so, you shouldn't be firing into glass or, something that's soft. A crowd of people would be considered soft in this case.
Now, we want to be clear, this shooting took place in a matter of seconds and acknowledge officers had to make tough decisions. Denver police say they only released a single still image of Jordan Waddy with a gun in their initial briefing to, quote, provide the public with information about the actions of Mr. Waddy and the officers leading up to the officers discharging their weapons.
And
Shannon?
Jess, you also talked with the attorney for that suspect, Jordan Waddy. He says this was an overreaction.
Yeah, Waddy's civil rights attorney, Tyrone Glover, he told me that the body camera video shows his client was surrendering, and he acknowledges that police have to make split-second decisions, but the way he sees it at that point, Waddy was not threatening or attempting to hurt anyone.
You see he's obviously thrown the gun, it's gone, it's like out of the frame, his hands are up. To me, that's not a split-second decision, and they didn't just shoot him once. This isn't just split-second decision, one shot. No, they fired on him 6 or 7 times, and they fired into 2 different crowds while they were doing it. It's reckless, it's inexcusable, it's excessive. They need to be held accountable.
And Glover told me Waddy's previous criminal record, in his opinion, doesn't matter in that moment and shouldn't be part of this discussion. But I did ask why his client had a gun given that record, and he simply said, for protection.
All right, sharp work tonight. Thank you, Jessica, for that.
Thank you both. Well, today we also learned the names of the Denver officers involved in that shooting. DPD tells Denver 7 that officers Megan Lieberson, Brandon Ramos, and Kenneth Rowland are on modified duty or non-patrol assignment. And in a statement today, the union representing Denver police said it stands behind its officers and that it looks forward to what they call a fair, impartial, and thorough investigation into the shooting. And still so many questions that the Denver 7 team is working to get answers. So if you would like to see the full body camera video for yourself, you can watch it right now on thedenverchannel.com. You can also get the very latest on this shooting on the free Denver 7 Plus app.
Developing tonight, Congresswoman Liz Cheney from Wyoming, an outspoken critic of Donald Trump, has lost her Republican primary to Harriet Hageman, a candidate backed by the former president. Cheney's defeat was expected. Trump won Wyoming in the last presidential election with some 70% of the vote. Now, both campaigns focused on Trump. Cheney on criticizing him as an existential threat to American democracy. Hageman echoing his unfounded claims of election fraud.
Polls just closed in Alaska, where we're keeping an eye on 2 more primary races, although we may not learn the outcome tonight. One is a special House race to fill the seat of Republican Representative Don Young, who died in March. Former Governor Sarah Palin is one of 3 candidates there. The other is the U.S. Senate race. Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski faces 18 challengers. The top 4 vote-getters will be on the November ballot.
And a victory for President Biden tonight as he signs the landmark Inflation Reduction Act into law.
Denver 7's Amy Wattis is here tonight breaking down what's in this bill and what it will mean for all of you. Amy?
Yeah, the $740 billion bill will do many things. It will help cut prescription drug and healthcare costs and help tackle climate change. But one expert we talked to says the bill is limited when it comes to actually lowering inflation, which has sent prices for everyday items skyrocketing.
It's difficult to find anything in there that's going to impact an individual consumer. If you're on the threshold of perhaps buying an electric car and not.
Now, Matt Klaus is a professor of finance at the University of Denver. He says where people will find relief is in the form of lower prescription drug costs. The bill caps prices at no more than $2,000 per year for Medicare recipients. And starting next year, insulin prices will be capped at $35 a month.
Depending upon your Medicare plan, some of those plans you may not pay for prescription drugs anyway.
The White House says the bill will also continue to keep the 13 million Americans insured under Obamacare at a lower premium. But Klaus says the bill is more about tackling climate change, where it devotes nearly $370 billion, the largest investment in U.S. history, doing things like offering a $7,500 tax credit for new purchases of electric vehicles. However, most vehicles won't qualify because the legislation requires them to include batteries made with U.S. materials to try to wean the industry off its reliance on foreign countries. The new law also offers businesses and homeowners incentives for making a commitment to clean energy.
Tax credits for businesses, tax incentives to do things to reduce emissions, then that's good, but that's all good for climate change.
Keep in mind, experts say we won't likely see long-term health care benefits with the Inflation Reduction Act for a few more years. In the studio, Amy Wattis, Denver 7.
Still some good rain and storms out there. I'll let you know if it's going to be rain or shine for Wednesday.
A new lease on life for dozens of rescued horses.
Some of them have even gained over 100 pounds, which is amazing.
How Denver 7 viewers have come to their help since hearing their story.
Plus, the Broncos trimmed down the roster, and Lionel's breaking down who the team let go, and it includes one player with deep ties to Denver.